Dialogue of Civilization Institute is very pleased to host you for this first global conversation on the economic impact of the global pandemic. We have about 200 participants connected today from all parts of the world. And we have, I think, about 65 countries represented among participants. For everyone, it shows that there is a profound interest from all parts of the world. And this is very much in line with the objective and the goal of the Dialogue of Civilization Institute, is to exchange across the world the perspective on the pandemic. Before we start, also to thank our partners, particularly GoNewsIndia, which is one of the largest media outlet in India, and also the Center for China and Globalization, which are also broadcasting this program.
I would like to draw your attention, for example, to a very poor state in southwestern India, the state of Kerala, where for various reasons, there was a strong and early response in the month of January itself, where the chief minister and the health minister took a very, very proactive approach, and that has basically made this relatively poor state with very, very minimal resources, because it has been discriminated against by the center as well. It has been able to limit the spread of the virus quite successfully, not only in terms of the number of people who are infected, but also it has been very, very exemplary, in my view, in terms of looking at the consequences of physical movement restrictions, particularly on the most vulnerable in society. And we are talking about an agricultural state where in the urban areas there are workers, many of whom are daily rated, daily paid, and very, very subject to such vulnerabilities. And also, of course, we have the problems of people who are self-employed and often heavily dependent on daily turnover of whatever business services, they might be involved in. I think yet another issue is in the Kerala experience has been how, like in the rest of East Asia, there has been an all-of-government approach. In all too many countries in the developing world especially, we have seen a major focus on the role of public health and the role of the police.
I would like first to ask you, that's the question from our partners from GoNews in India, what will be the possible effect on global foreign investment of the crisis, taking into account that at this very moment in time, global or foreign investors have a tendency to look much more inwards than looking internationally. So, and of course, this has a tremendous impact, and it is not just coincidence. The question is coming from India. So what is, for a country like India or for many other developing countries, what is the likely impact of the crisis on foreign investment?
Well, at the moment, what you're seeing is a flight to safety, which means a flight to the government bills and bonds of the countries that are typically considered to be the most secure, including, interestingly enough, the United States, and despite the fact that we have one of the less well-organized responses to the virus so far. Will that change? I think it will change, but only quite slowly over time. And I'm very much in the line of the view expressed by my Brazilian economist friend Luis Carlos Presser Pereira, that a country pursuing a development strategy should not be relying on external debt or external financial flows. Openness of trade, I suspect that trade will resume because the global supply chains will still be there, and they can be handled with the physical distancing required to keep them reasonably safe. But I suspect that the financial exposures will be considerably less going forward than they have been in the past.
We have first a question from Go News about international foreign investment, and then we have the question from Chile and from Buenos Aires, from Rio de Janeiro. Sorry.
Joma, you want to take the Indian question?
Sure. I think it's all bets are off about the future trends in foreign direct investment. I think what is likely to happen is that as people move from one panicky situation to another, perceptions of one panic to another, as we are going to see a lot of movements on financial markets, on liquid financial markets especially. But how much that will contribute to the economic revival remains to be seen. I think foreign direct investment can be quite important, but it's not very clear how firms who are the main actors in any case are going to reorganize themselves, how governments are going to try to reorganize national economies. There will be a great deal of emphasis, for example, on trying to secure greater national food security. There might be more investments going into in that direction, and so on and so forth. So a country like the United States, which is the single largest agricultural exporter in the world, may find that it has less customers out there, except for China itself, because of the deal which has been made with China. A country like the Netherlands, which is the second largest agricultural exporter, may also be affected, and so on and so forth. I think it is too soon to tell. I think we have not had sufficient discussion about how the economic production and economic services are being disrupted by the not only by the lockdowns, but more importantly by the new normal. What is the new normal going to look like? How are different actors going to respond to situations? It is very likely that the global supply chains, which have built up over the last 3 or 4 decades, will be significantly impaired. It is also very likely that, given the challenges to multilateralism, which we have seen in the recent period, even before the COVID-19 lockdown, and the determination by some very influential powers to point fingers as to who is responsible for this crisis and so on, is going to further impair multilateral cooperation. And this will pose extremely important challenges. In this situation, Dialogue of Civilisations will be very important in terms of trying to maintain a second or third line of communication and dialogue among people who share common universal values in going forward, and how we can try to come through this to make sure that the new normal is in line with these such values. But that's going to be easier said than done. There is very little interest in that right now, and I do not see this happening in the immediate future. But I think it's precisely these kinds of dialogues which DOC is organizing on today and in future and elsewhere, where we will be able to influence some of the conversations which are taking place.